What is the scariest scene in a horror movie? It's a pretty tough question. Throughout the decades, we've had so many horror movies with scary scenes, but is there really a way to determine which one's the scariest? Well, today, I'd like to give you a few contenders to consider for the scariest scene in a horror movie. These three scenes that I've found over so many years of watching horror movies have resonated with me and stayed with me for one reason or another. And with that being said, let's look at our very first scene. Up first, we have a scene from the movie The Strangers. This is a movie about two people, Kristen and James, who are expecting to have a nice and relaxing weekend at their family vacation home. However, things take a rather dark turn when their home is invaded by a bunch of random, psychotic individuals. The scene in particular that I want to look at is one with our main character, Kristen, who's walking around in her kitchen, and I'll just play out the scene for you guys right now. This scene resonated with me so well because it relies on the audience's expectations and knowledge of the scene. We as the audience can see that there's a clear threat that has entered the room. However, our main character hasn't noticed this, and we have to watch for a full minute while we see this mysterious figure standing there in the corner, doing absolutely nothing. This scene leaves the viewer on edge, and it makes them expect something to happen. The audience knows that there's a danger, but we don't know what's going to come next. And we also have no way of communicating this to our main character, leaving both us and the characters completely helpless. The second scene I want to look at comes from the Poughkeepsie Tapes. Released in 2008, this horror movie is a mockumentary about a fake serial killer. The movie shows us the point of view of said serial killer as he does horrific things to his victims. The scene I would like to discuss comes towards the end of the movie. The scene starts with the camera being laid upon the dashboard of the car, and we hear a conversation between a man and a woman. The woman's car is broken down, and the man, who happens to be a police officer, offers her a ride. However, as the audience, we know something that this poor woman doesn't know. This man is not a police officer, but he's in fact the serial killer that we've been following this entire time. The woman happily gets into the car, unaware of the man's true identity, and this is where the true horror begins. We know that the moment that this woman gets in that car, that she, unfortunately, won't be able to make it out of this. The following conversation is rather quiet, and slowly but surely, the man reveals his true identity to the woman. We watch in horror as she continues to talk to him, and she doesn't understand what's going on. And then he reveals it to her.
So I don't understand. Who are you then?
I'm a butcher.
She initially assumes that he's just joking, that he's not really a killer, and that she's not really in danger. But she is, and she's helpless. She screams for someone, anyone, to get her out of the car, to save her.
I'm so sorry! Please let me!
Obviously, I wouldn't leave handles on the doors.
But it's too late. We knew as the audience from the moment she stepped into that vehicle that she was in danger, and there was nothing that anyone could have done about it. The last scene I would like to look at is from the film Inside. Released in 2007, Inside is a psychological horror thriller about a woman having to protect her unborn child from a maniac attempting to break into her home. And I'll play the horrifying scene in question right now for you guys. Now I know what you're thinking. That was pretty similar to the first scene. What makes this one so different? Well, my reasoning for why I believe that this scene is equally as terrifying as the one from The Strangers is ambiguity. This scene uses its lighting to enhance the ambiguity and mystery behind who exactly this is. there's a shadowy figure standing in the corner behind our main character. Now, in this instance, we can't quite make out what it is. In the last scene, we could clearly see that it was a figure standing in the corner, and it was a person wearing some kind of mask on their head, which is still quite unsettling as it doesn't allow us to recognize their facial features, creating another sense of horror in its own right. However, here, we have no idea what exactly this thing is. The lighting has obscured its shape, and although we can see that it's mostly humanoid, and it's probably a person, the fear of the unknown is still seeping into our minds. At this point, you might have noticed a trend or theme with all the scenes that I've picked, and that is one key detail that all of these films use to create terrifying scenes, and that is the use of dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is a literary device that relies on the viewer's understanding of the material that surpasses the knowledge of the characters in said material. In other words, it's what the audience knows that the characters in the story don't. We know that there's a mysterious figure standing in the corner. We know that this woman is getting into a car with a serial killer. And we know that there is something lurking in the shadows. It still leaves ambiguity and room for terror. However, all of these scenes give us that little bit of knowledge that we need to understand what's going on, to understand how scared we need to be, to understand how horrifying the situation truly is. Hey everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and all that good stuff. And let me know what you guys think the scariest scene in a horror movie is. I'm interested to hear you guys' thoughts. And yeah, I hope you guys have a good day.